Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Rent Prep for Landlords. This is episode 213, Steve.
I'm pretty excited. This is our second take. We had to restart this one.
Yeah, we went down this whole 213 path.
Yeah.
And
we won't do it this time.
I started rapping for a little bit, and we're like, you know what? They don't want to hear that.
No. It was good, though.
Yeah.
You should come out with a rap album.
Well, I thought Warren G was 213, but apparently it might just be Snoop Dogg. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in the suburbs. We listened to a lot of rap music growing up, you know. I thought it was cool.
You need to brush up on your rap history.
Yeah, a little bit. But on today's episode, we're going to be going into the news. We have 3 stories we're going to be sharing with you. A uber rich mansion in Italy is being sold online, but it's being sold in a really unique way. We also have a pretty sad story that's coming out of Toronto with LA connections about the way not to, give your real estate empire away to your son.
Yeah.
And it's a real sad story, but we'll get to that. And a pretty funny video from Facebook that I wanted to share with everybody of a real estate agent who knows how to market herself.
Love it.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have the landlord hotline that'll be coming up later on the episode. We got a interesting story or an interesting voicemail that I'm going to play for you, Steve, where maybe the cops misled the landlord, and now the landlord's in hot water because of it.
Ooh,
so
okay.
We'll get to all of that right after this.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Welcome to the Rent Prep for Landlords podcast. And now your hosts, Stephen White and Eric Worrell.
Well, all right, let's just get right to it. Our first story comes to us from Bitcoin.com, actually news.bitcoin.com. So this one kind of caught my attention here because this is very topical. This is actually the day this podcast release is June 28th, and that is the same day that an auction is going to be kind of concluding in Italy. So there is a mansion in Italy. It's in Rome, and it was built by the geniuses of the Italian Renaissance, and it's located in the center of Rome's historic Palazzo Albertoni Spinola. Did I say that right?
That's pretty good. Yeah.
And it's valued at 35 million euro. But the interesting thing about this is that this, it's essentially like a museum in and of itself, right? This mansion is so valuable, is that they're selling it online, and that they're accepting bids in US dollars and in cryptocurrency.
Yeah. And when I read through this, am I right that you can buy portions or pieces of ownership? So in other words, you don't need to buy the entire piece of property. You're, one person. You could put down 1,000 Bitcoin or whatever it might be, right?
Yeah, that's kind of
so they're looking for part owners.
Yeah, and it's just going to be this whole entire. It says here's what it says as far as bidder terms and conditions. That if you want to actually join in on this, I apologize because you would have had to have done this yesterday, because I'm sure you had $100,000 sitting around just to deposit so that you could actually bid. So if you deposit $100,000 in US dollars or its cryptocurrency equivalent, they'll give you the right to bid. Then you can place an opening and max bid or make an offer up to June 27th. And on June 28th, you can sign in and participate in the live streaming auction. I'm not sure. I did read that earlier as far as if it's a portion that you can own, because I know it was saying something like that, or if it's how that exactly works.
Yeah, selling ownership for Rome's architectural masterpiece. Yeah, I don't know. And it's interesting. I mean, imagine if this changes the way real estate deals and transactions are made, and they move it to something like this where everything is done online, and you could basically have kind of like a real estate trust where you can get multiple people bidding and putting in pieces that they're comfortable putting in to get to your number. I don't know.
I just thought it was interesting, too, the fact that they're allowing cryptocurrencies. So somebody, with 10,000 Bitcoin can go in there and place a bid and buy property with Bitcoin. That's a pretty big, development in the world of cryptocurrency, if you follow that at all. Yeah. So I thought that was worth sharing.
Well, I don't know how happy the Italians are going to be when some pimply-faced millennial who made $1 billion on Bitcoin ends up owning one of their most valuable pieces of property.
Yeah. He ends up just turning it into Pimp My Ride kind of thing.
Yeah. They do video games out of there now or something. I don't know.
It's a video game arcade now. Come and play Pac-Man. Right. We have a McDonald's in the front foyer.
Right. They might end up regretting selling it for Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to our next in the news segment story here. We have, and this one comes from the CBC Canada. This is from the Associated Press. So This is about a Toronto real estate tycoon's son who wrote graphic novels about killing people, and he was just convicted of murder.
When I saw this story, this was a classic case. And for anyone out there listening that's building your fortune in real estate, don't just give it away to your kid.
Mm-hmm.
Make your kid earn it. This is I read this, and this is a classic case of somebody who has far too much money that didn't work for it, that didn't do anything for it, and they don't know how to deal with that kind of money and that kind of livelihood. This kid was getting an allowance of $18,000 a month over a period of 7 years until he inherited the majority of his mother's estate. So I'm not saying that he didn't work for anything for a living, but I got to imagine no matter what he did, he's not earning $18,000 a month as a kid.
Yeah, and when this guy was 37, he was found guilty. His name is Blake Leibel, I believe is how you say the last name, of first-degree murder, torture, and aggravated mayhem in the slaying of Lana Cassian, which was his 30-year-old girlfriend. So this was a Canadian man, and he wrote graphic novels that featured gruesome killings and was convicted of this in Southern California on Wednesday, the torture and mutilation of his living girlfriend. Super sad story. But yeah, just what Steve was saying is that you just kind of picture somebody who was born with the golden spoon in his mouth and just so out of touch with reality, and starts writing. And then they said that the way that the murder took place, that it mimicked the murders in the story, which is just so sad.
I wish I had the statistics. I heard a statistic one time that was pretty shocking, that the rate of business failure for second generation is like unbelievably high. So in other words, first generation, you built the business, you start the business, you work hard, you bootstrap it or do whatever you can to get that business up and going. And then you hand it off to the next generation, to, your kid or whatever. And they don't have that same work ethic that took to build that business. And so now you're handing them something and they're completely unprepared, completely unqualified. And it's not shocking that these things fall apart. And I think this kid's a classic case of,
Well, I think it was Bill Gates that I heard talk about this, which I thought was a really interesting quote. Somebody had asked him a question because his daughter was living with him, and she was older. She was going to restaurants that he would go to. And it came out that his daughter would leave like a $50 tip with her meal, and he would leave like, your standard 20% tip.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody said, why? Like, what is that about? Why do you do that? And he simply answered, he goes, well, my daughter is the son of a billionaire and I'm the son of a shoemaker.
Yeah, right.
And he's just like has this whole different perception and the way that he treats money.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was a really great quote. And, this is a really good story here. Well, not a good story, but a good example that real estate tycoon, chances are they weren't born with all that.
Mm-hmm.
And the son was, and it just twisted his mindset.
Right.
Yeah, but that's a sad one, though. I feel like we should get going because we got a fun story here for us next. This one is about a realtor who's out in the LA area as well. Her name is Veronica Racinos. And, it's tough selling houses right now. There's not a lot of supply, so she's trying to build up business for herself. So she's been doing these absolutely ridiculous videos on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and everything, trying to sell some properties and getting people to do her program. So why don't we take a listen here, Steve?
Okay.
Hi, everyone. It's Veronica Racinos again with Century 21 Home and Investment. It's the beginning of the month again, and rent is due again. It's very lovely because now you have to pay your rent again, and you have to pay your landlord's mortgage. Very beautiful. But stop whining about it. You know why? Because here at Century 21 Home and Investment, we're having a home buyer seminar tomorrow at 6 p.m. That's right. The Los Angeles No Renter Left Behind movement was made just for you, the renter who thinks they can buy a house. Yes, you can buy a house, so keep on thinking that way. Don't let nobody take that mentality away from you. All we want to do is make sure that you come into a home, you can afford your mortgage, and that you can afford to buy a house. Please give me a call for your free tickets at 562-415-6105. You know why? Because tomorrow I'm going to show you how to be a homeowner.
That was terrifying. That took an unexpected, aggressive turn that I was not expecting at all.
Well, I feel like we should paint the picture a little because they may have heard the sound. So Veronica here came down out of this park setting. She walks down to this concrete patio.
She's drinking a glass of wine.
Big glass of red wine. Seems like she's pretty relaxed. And then all of a sudden she yells, "Stop whining about it," and just smashes her wine on the ground.
Yeah.
So apparently this is her shtick. This wine glass goes with her on other videos,
Oh.
and she smashes red wine glasses filled with wine, and then starts yelling at people that they can own a home.
I hope that she's cleaning the glass up in the park. That's all I can think about is, oh my God, some kid's going to step on that glass.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Well, she did. I bet you she's doing pretty good. She's got 861,000 views on that video.
yeah, she's not helping the economy out. Let me give you my thoughts on why I would say that. But what's your takeaway on this?
Well, my one takeaway is, if you're happen to be a real estate agent, right? You watch something like this and you're like, oh my gosh, that lady, she's that's too much. That's whatever. This lady is crushing it now in her business, though. And it's because she is willing to be out there that much. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a real estate agent. You could be a tenant screening company.
Yeah.
Although we did delete our first take of this podcast. It was a little bit out there. I'm disappointed in you, Steve. But it could be somebody who's, just driving for dollars.
Okay.
Everybody's a
Yeah.
marketer in some way, and you're trying to, figure out ways to connect yourself with other people and make some more money. And that's what she's doing.
All right. I completely understand that perspective. My take on it was, and on the podcast, I've mentioned several times, the economic crash of 2008, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've predicted the future of another economic crash and different signals and different red flags along the way that we probably missed the first time and, leading up to the 2008 crash that I'm noticing this time coming up. And I'm not a doomsdayer or any type of thing like that, but I feel like we got somewhat of an inside peek here. And when we start to see the credit bureaus changing their algorithms, we start to see certain really important items being removed from credit scores and standards like judgments and liens, things like that. What else terrifies me is, the real collapse of 2008 was really brought on by the subprime market. People who had no business buying homes that were buying homes, and lenders that were willing to get these people mortgages, and they end up defaulting on the mortgages or being, getting into situations where they're upside down on the mortgages. So I don't know. To me, she's speaking to that crowd. She's speaking to the crowd of people, these renters who may not be qualified to purchase a home.
Especially that line of like, stop paying your landlord's mortgage kind of thing.
Yeah, I get it. Listen, if you got hustle in you and it should be a long-term goal. You should, there's a lot of steps to take to get your credit in good order, make sure you have the right amount of money down, make sure you're in good financial, stable job for a certain amount of years. And you got all these things. You start taking shortcuts. And I just read a super scary statistic that there are more subprime mortgages being written now on a monthly basis than there were in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
That's terrifying. Like, we did not learn our lesson from 10 years ago, clearly. And we're doomed to repeat it again. And I think it's stuff like this that's going to put us back in that spot where you got,
people just overextending themselves. And
yeah. And there's always going to be a market, for people like Veronica. No offense to her, but I'm sure, like I said, she's targeting those people. And that's where she's making all this money. And
it kind of reminds me a little bit of the car dealer, right? It's like, doesn't matter what your credit, doesn't matter what it is, we'll get you financing. And of course they will, because they're going to make a ton of money on that financing, because you're going to have a horrible interest rate because of how bad your credit is. Yep. And they hope that you default, because they probably didn't even make a lot of money on the sale of the car. They're just hoping that you default. Yeah,
absolutely. Same thing with the buy here, pay here. They want you to default. That's how they're making their money. They're getting that car back. They're able to resell it again or crush you on fees and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. This is this is a lion in sheep's clothing, in my opinion. I feel like this is a scary telltale sign of what's to come again.
Yeah. Well, you might be reading too much into one video, but you might be right too. So, depending on if you're a half glass full or half glass empty kind of guy.
The sky is falling.
Yeah. Or maybe the earth is rising.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm not. These tactics are pretty cheesy to me. No offense, Veronica.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like people who are qualified to buy homes have been preparing to buy the house. This is not a
Yeah, it shouldn't be that you're going to a seminar where like you're going to learn how to buy a house.
Yeah,
it's
this
you
is-
learn how to buy a house by saving and making good financial decisions.
Yeah, it's planned. It's a planned thing. You can't just watch a video and be like, I'm going to go to this seminar tomorrow
Well,
and buy a house.
If you guys want to watch the video, we will have it on the show notes. So you can go to the podcast, just rentprep.com. You can see the podcast in the navigation and go to episode 213. But we got more in this episode right now. We're going to be talking about the landlord hotline. That's right, 716-218-0363.
Is it going to be crazier than Veronica here?
No,
Oh,
and it's
this
definitely not going to be crazier than the last one we did where we had the meth addict duo on there. I know I shouldn't make fun of them, but
Go back to episode 212 if you haven't heard that. That's a must listen to.
yeah,
for
there's
sure.
probably at least 20 bleeps in there of swear words getting cut out. So props to our podcast editor, Luca, for doing that for us. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
So this particular landlord hotline, we actually got a blog post where you can leave voice messages too. And it was a blog post on abandoned property, that when somebody leaves your rental and they abandon property, what to do. So why don't we take a listen here and see what we got going on, Steve?
My tenants abandoned the property. We went in. We found that there was stolen property, drug paraphernalia, syringes, heroin, meth pipes. We called the authorities. They came in and took the stolen property and told us to take the rest of the property that could be or could not be stolen to Goodwill. We did that. Now the tenants want to have us put them in a new rental place and replace their property. Do they have the right to do that to us?
Ooh.
Yeah, right. This is a weird one.
Yeah, that's tough. I get where he's going with it. You know, he may not have followed proper procedures for abandoned property.
Yeah, and it's interesting too that the police are the ones that told him.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe like a police officer just in passing who didn't know any better of the local
Yeah,
laws
well, I'm sure.
told him, yeah, just take this stuff to Goodwill. You're fine. But that doesn't mean a judge is going to just say, hey, that's fine. A police officer told you that. And
Yeah.
I also want to know how you take a meth pipe to Goodwill, but
Barely used.
yeah,
$2. Man, that's tough. I feel terrible for the landlord. He obviously was taking advice from a credible source, and
Yep.
you would assume the police officers have probably seen stuff like this and tried giving the guy advice based on their experience. But immediately I caught the same thing that I know you were thinking was, yeah, the landlord probably didn't follow proper procedure, probably didn't hold the property for a certain amount of time, probably didn't give them the opportunity to come get it within that time. I mean, if he's wrong, he's wrong. I don't know what they're going to be able to get out of him in terms of making him give, I don't think he's going to have to do all that. I'd leave it up to the judge at that point, and let the judge sort out what happens with what. And hopefully the judge has a reasonable outlook on this and favors the landlord in this situation. But I fear that it may not come down to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of a sad story if this guy ends up kind of getting the screws a little bit to him because he got bad advice from the cop. But, maybe there's a takeaway for even us on this one where it doesn't have to necessarily deal with, this specific situation. But sometimes people just give you advice in passing. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's the law, even if it's coming from a police officer.
Yeah.
They might have just been thinking like, oh, yeah, I don't know, take it to Goodwill and didn't really think much of it. And now this guy's going to be kind of, potentially having to pay back money for property to somebody who wrecked their property,
I just had a conversation with a landlord. I know I told you a little bit of the backstory, Eric, a couple days ago, that long story short, the landlord was using an application that didn't have the proper consent disclosures on it.
Mm-hmm.
Ends up giving the application out, running the background check. They find all kinds of stuff on the background check. And now the people are complaining that they were never told that there would be a background check that was ran. And of course, the agreement that they signed, the application that they signed never mentions anything about having the background check ran.
Yeah.
Who's wrong in that situation? Is the landlord wrong for having screening criteria and being able to choose who they want to rent to? Or is the applicant wrong, for having a checkered past that doesn't qualify them? And unfortunately, this is a technicality where the landlord's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, just because they didn't get the written permission.
Yeah. It's
They
like
didn't cross all their T's.
It's that classic case where the landlord gives the security deposit back with cash and doesn't write a receipt and ends up having to pay it again after he goes to court. It's tough. You got to make sure you're doing things by the law. I mean, this is a sad example of you're right, but you're wrong.
Yeah.
You're right, but you're wrong.
Well, I got one other story here. I was pestering Steve with this, probably more so last week, but yeah, I'm internet famous, Steve. I don't know if you know this about me.
Yeah.
I had somebody from my high school reach out who, I won't name any names, but she's got what you would call a checkered past.
Okay.
And she said that she was looking up some information online that had to do with, I want to say it was evictions.
Yeah, she was tenant rights is what she was looking at because she was evicted.
So she said, I was on the internet trying to get some answers on a rent situation I have going on and randomly ended up at your website. Started to watch a video and there you were. I'm not sure if you had the right answer here, but basically she was asking about the topic of a landlord accepting rent money after the eviction process was already started. Really, once we got into it, I did reply to her. It was just insane. I don't know if you saw any of this, but basically her situation was that there was already a judgment in place. The judge ruled that she owed $1,335 in fees and back rent. And that was due by the 11th of June with a stipulation of paying June's rent of $600 by the 5th. So, $600 rent already owes $1,300. And then the $1,335 was not paid by the 11th, but the $600 for June's rent was paid on the 6th.
So even that was paid late.
Yes. So this year, I know if you're a landlord, property manager listening to this, it'll just drive you up a wall when you start hearing this rationalization that's going to come out here.
Yeah.
So for a couple of weeks, nothing came of the situation. And then the 72-hour notice was placed on the door on the 20th, which said that we needed to vacate by the 25th. So if June's rent was paid, is the landlord still able to evict the tenants before the month of June is over? The money order and the receipt of payment both say June's rent on them, not back rent or anything like that.
When you told me the story, I went nuts. I was like, what?
Yeah. So they didn't pay. I get away. It's female. She didn't pay probably 2 months of rent at least, plus fees.
Yeah, right.
Then finally ended up saying, you know what? I didn't pay, March, April, May, but I did pay June. So I think I'm good until the 30th.
Yeah. Why would you evict me? I paid June.
Yeah. And this was all over 5 days.
Yeah.
So as politely as I could, replied to her, if I were you, I'd probably just move out.
Yeah. You didn't pay. Yeah. You're being evicted. You didn't pay what's owed. If you don't pay that amount that the judge ordered you to pay, it's why they call it a judgment.
And knowing this individual and her past, I would guarantee that this landlord did not run a background check.
Yeah. Well, lesson learned there. I mean, we see this a lot, right? Where they try to find, just remember this, if you're a landlord, you're fighting a force of nature. You're fighting somebody who is going to try anything to try to get out of paying.
I know I didn't pay rent for 2 years, but I paid rent this month.
Yeah.
Can I get those last 5 days from you?
Right.
Can you imagine being the landlord and be like, no, get the out.
Yeah. No, we're done here. You're out. Yeah. So I've heard this sort of logic before, where, I paid this month, so I should be good, but disregard all those other months that I didn't pay. Good on the landlord for doing the right thing. I mean, the landlord didn't wait too long, got a judgment already.
Yeah. Which I was surprised that they already got that they even took the few weeks after that. I thought it would have been like immediate once it was late, but.
Yeah, I would say the biggest takeaway for me hearing this story is, oh, cool. That landlord is on top of his stuff. He's doing the right thing.
And you know what? Like sometimes you might feel bad, like serving that eviction notice, depending on how the relationship is. But sometimes it's the kick in the ass that some people need.
We talk about this a lot, where if you're allowing people to pay late, if you're allowing them to skip rent, you're enabling them really at the end of the day. You're not helping them out at all. You're really not. I know it might sound cold or, and I'm a pretty loving person myself, Eric. You know this about me. I'm not the type of person. I don't know why you
made such a weird face when you said that.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to make eye connection on you.
Steve's like a Zen Buddhist type. He really is.
I don't, but I wouldn't want to see anybody out on the street or, you know what I mean?
I think when I first started working here, there was ants in the office and Steve was sweeping them up into a pan and letting them go outside because he didn't believe in killing ants.
I haven't killed an insect in years. Yeah.
What if you had like a mosquito sucking blood out of your arm? What would you do? You think it might have had like Zika?
Oh. Well, I'll flick a mosquito off of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. smash it or intentionally kill it, but if it's already latched onto me, I'm definitely getting it off of me.
Yeah.
It's me or him.
Yeah.
I'm not completely crazy. So same thing with a spider. I'm not a real big fan of spiders, but even spiders, it took me years to work the nerve up to catch and release spiders in my house, where I would catch them and then take them outside. And
You need that spider claw thing. You ever seen that? There's like a
No.
viral video online. So you know those they have those like old school claws where it'd be like a handle that you could like you pull on the handle, and then at the end of it has like a dinosaur head that like,
Yeah.
it looks like that, except at the end of it, it's all these bristles that kind of shoot outwards.
okay.
And then when you pull the handle on the grip, all those bristles close.
Ooh.
So what it does is if there's a spider on the wall, you can put it up on the spider, and then it closes on the spider, but actually it doesn't kill
Doesn't kill it.
And then you
yeah.
can take it outside and let it go.
Oh,
and it,
dude, I need one of those.
yeah.
Yeah.
And plus you get that 3-4 feet between you and the
Yes,
spiders.
in case
So
they jump out at the wall and try
you don't have to do like
bite
one of
your
those
face.
patented Steve White screams that you have.
Yeah, I don't want to touch the spider. Yeah, but I'm a pretty reasonable person, but I also don't want to enable somebody to continue with this type of behavior that needs to obviously be corrected for them to survive in our society. They're not going to be able to go anywhere and pull the type of nonsense that they're pulling with, not paying or,
Mhm. Well, you know what? Speaking of nonsense,
yeah.
I'd like to do a callback to our last episode.
Okay.
I talked to Rich. He didn't get one nonsensical email
Oh, that's
all week.
It's disappointing.
Yeah. Everybody, Rich, RICH at RENTPREP, rentprep.com. That's his email. He's our business development manager. So
Yeah, he needs
if
to hear
you got a
from you.
gripe or you got an issue, we
Yeah.
want you to email Rich.
Yeah.
And you know what? At worst case, he gets way too many emails and we regret this and we wasted a lot of his time. Or maybe you're a property manager and you want, background checks and you want some bulk
Yeah,
pricing.
Sure.
You can do that too. Or maybe, somebody did something mean to you in traffic and you just needed to vent to Rich.
Yeah. I
That's
do
what
that
Rich is here
sometimes.
for. And this is
Yeah.
going to become a thing on the podcast.
Yeah.
Now-
Rich, somebody wronged me today. Let me tell you my whole situation.
Yeah. So if you feel like you need to get something off your chest, Rich at rentprep.com.
Mm-hmm.
Check it out. Send him an email. And I think that's how we're going to close this episode out.
Yeah. Good episode.
All right. Rich, we hope you get some action on the email inbox. All right. All right. Take care, everybody.